Hello and welcome to Bruno's RPG Talk. So today we're going to talk about players who railroad the game. Not game masters, players. Like player characters. Here's a good rule of thumb. If you have a character who has only one motivation, a single one, like nothing else will matter to him or her. Like, they won't be bothered to like, get out from a chair unless it has to do with that. Unless the Game Master has approved and agrees with it. Think of something else. No, seriously. Think of something else. If you sit down to play a role-playing game with friends, and you create this character that will absolutely, like, the story will have to be centered around what isn't to interest, like directly of interest to that character, or rather, because it makes sense that the character will only go see what interests them, but, or rather, if you give him so few interests that the Game Master will have no choice but to give you exactly what you want all the time in a game for your character to get involved, think of another concept, or modify your existing concept, because it's not going to work. And you're basically going to want to railroad your game. Because sometimes players can be really headstrong, like because it's important for players to be able to say no. For example, let's say you're playing D&D, and you're playing a paladin, and then the Game Master is like, well, to open this door and save the world, you have to kill an innocent. That's how the ritual works, and I think the player of the paladin will be completely entitled to say, well, no, I'm not going to kill an innocent. And if the Game Master kind of stops the game and goes, well, you have to, then it's the Game Master's at fault. He's the one trying to railroad the paladin player. I mean, not that you couldn't put such a situation in the game, but I mean, a Game Master telling the paladin, the player, that he has to do that now, like, that's railroad on the Game Master side. That's bad. And there's lots of occasions, more often than not, where players should feel entitled to, like, say, well, I'm not going to do that. Same way as if... Sorry. Ah, gotcha. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, he's going to attack the curtain as a ninja if I don't grab him now. I swear this wasn't prepared to, like, show a cute cat on the video. It was really... all of a sudden. Anyway. So... what I was saying something about railroads and players and game masters. Okay, yeah. So basically, what happens is when you create a character, or when you're a game master and players are preparing the characters, make sure that they're three-dimensional. Not only in their personality, but in their interests or their motivations. Because if you play someone who's not gonna like bother joining the story, then you're not playing the right kind of character. For example, like if you say, I want to like avenge my father's death. My character wants to avenge his father's death. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. But then also think of why they're an adventurer. Again, if we're playing D&D, like it could work for something else. But I'm just using the easiest example because most people, like more often than not, like more role players play D&D than anything else. Okay, but then you have to think of, okay, why would he adventure? Like, maybe he needs money for his revenge, or so he goes adventuring, or... Whereas, if you create a character that will not do anything else but seek, like, to avenge his father's death, and if it doesn't have to do directly with that, they won't help. Like, if they see orcs attacking a village, they won't care, like, they won't do anything, unless the Game Master is fine with, like, you know, because you have to collaborate between the player and the Game Master. But in the end, if the player goes more often than not, you know, my character wouldn't be interesting if it's not with this single thing that I want to play, you know? Because that's what happens. Like, sometimes players try to railroad the game into what interested them in the story, like just them, and don't really think of the rest of the group, or the Game Master is trying to get this game going and have everyone involved. And they excuse it as, well, as a player, I should be free to do what I want. And then what they basically do is, I'm not going to do anything of interest. I'm just going to complain, or I'm not going to do anything unless you give me what I want. Exactly what I wanted. And this is difficult to discuss because there is such a thing as a player should be able to do what they want. But some people abuse that, and instead of really doing what their character would logically do, they just pretend to be doing that, while in fact they're just saying, I want my kind of story. And those players should probably, like, I don't know, like, realize that they can't do that. It's problematic. Or the same kind of player will sometimes have an idea like, oh, that would have been so much better if it had been like that. Like, no matter what the idea is or whatever, like, they'll always have an idea after the fact of how it could have been so much better. And again, that'll be a problem in the sense that they... Sorry about the noise. There's cats. We're keeping a cat for a friend of my roommate. And there's another cat right now in the back. Anyway. So yeah, basically that's the thing. It's a thing where if you're gonna be a player, you have the right to your freedom. You have the right to say my character is not gonna do that, or my character is gonna do that, even though the game master didn't prepare for it. But sometimes you have to think of like, okay, instead of saying my character is not gonna do that, because people who do that a lot tend to have that attitude as a default. You know, whereas in my case, every time I come across a situation, I'm going to be thinking, okay, what would my character do with this? But some people have the default, like they just go, is this what I planned from the beginning at my character creation? Like, is this something I planned for? Is this something I wanted? Is this directly related to my character concept? And if not, my character wouldn't do that. Like, they don't really wonder what the character would do. They just go with that thought. Like, it's a difficult concept to explain, but that's basically it. Like, sometimes you have to ask, instead of going, that's not what I expected, therefore my character wouldn't do it, ask yourself, if my character were to do it, why would he, or why would she? And if you have no good answer, then it's safe to say your character wouldn't do that. If you yourself can be honest enough to admit to yourself, maybe I'm that kind of player, instead of doing what you usually do, ask yourself, why would he or would she do that? And then maybe the answer would surprise you. Maybe you'll go like, oh yeah, like for example, you know, well I don't think a person ever watched my videos and never will, but so if you're watching this, I'm sorry, like, you'll recognize yourself, and I'm sorry, but you're a perfect example right now. There was this character, like this player in one of my previous games who would always say that, like, oh, my character wouldn't really do that, like, and make it a huge point of like how kind of unhappy he was, or anyway, and then he would basically, and you know, he would, I'm not, like, my character wouldn't be interested in this bad guy, and I had to point out, well, this bad guy kind of like attacked you a few times, would it be logical for you to be interested in? Also, if you're really protective of your brother, who was another character in the game, wouldn't you want to protect your brother and learn more about the bad guy? So it was one of those cases where I really wasn't like, it wasn't a railroad, like they could do whatever they wanted. But it's one of those situations where it really was like, really? Seriously? Like, seriously your character? Because he said it so often. And it was one of those cases, he really wouldn't be interested? Wow. It's as if saying, like, I don't know, like someone tries to kill one of the characters and then the character would say, oh, my character wasn't interested in, like, whoever tried to kill him. And I'd be like, that's kind of hard to believe, you know? If someone tried to kill me, I'd be damn interested in it. Like, no matter if you're good, evil, or whatever, you know, unless you're playing the most blasé of characters who doesn't care about anything. But in this case, this character cared about his brother, who was also part of the party. So it really didn't make sense. It really made me realize, well, this guy just, you know. Also, it doesn't help that when asked, okay, because sometimes it's fine for a game master to go ask a player. Sometimes if a player is not satisfied, it's not like to be weak-willed. It's not to be a wuss, like to you know. It's okay to ask a player, well, what would you prefer then? Like, what would be more fun for you? And how? Anyway, so it's okay to ask that. Sometimes you go, you know, sometimes the player might say, well, I would have preferred more politics, or I would have preferred more action. It's fine to adapt your story to what the players want to, you know, because everyone's supposed to be having fun. It's okay to have some compromises. That's in fact what I love game masters could learn more of that. It's not your secret story. It's a game, and everyone should enjoy it. But then these kinds of players also very often are like not only hard to satisfy, but they're like, if you ask them, okay, what would they be interested in? Sometimes you realize that their answers are very vague. When that happens, then it's probably the type B who can be mixed with type A. Like type A is this doesn't have to do with the story I wanted to be playing, like the specific story, like incredibly specific. Like if, for example, if someone did a character where he wanted to be hunting dragons, and then they come across orcs, and he's like, well, these aren't dragons, fuck it, like I'm not gonna participate. Then you actually kind of made a character that's hard for your game master to integrate, unless they do a campaign that's only about dragons now, and then too bad for all the other players. You're putting like, you're complicating things for the whole group. And then there's type B where it's not really that they their character wouldn't be interested. It's just like they somehow think that like they could have done better if they were the game master. In which case they probably should be a game master instead of a player. They're like, oh, that's not really that interesting. Like. But again, that's a player's bias, because in real life, even if something doesn't interest you, like I have my hobbies, I have my interests, but sometimes you have to wonder. For example, let's say you're not interested in sport. For example, you're a guy or a girl, whatever. You're not interested in sports, or in whatever else, I don't know, or you don't like this kind of movie, and then a cute person asks you out to do just that. For example, there's some movies that I was never into the Harry Potter movies, which I know is apparently a lot of geeks go like, what? But anyway, I really was never into Harry Potter. I have nothing against it. It's not like, for example, I hate Twilight. I don't care about Harry Potter. It's very different. But yeah, I never went to see those movies, and they're not for me. They're not really for me. I love fantasy, but Harry Potter is not my kind of fantasy. And that sounded naughty. Anyway, Harry Potter is not my kind of fantasy. Yeah. So, but the point is, I went to see it with a cute girl once, because I was with a cute girl. So let's say I was a character in a boring role-playing game, in a boring normal life role-play. And the guy, the guy who's playing the Bruno character goes, yeah, Bruno doesn't like Harry Potter movies, he's not gonna go. But maybe in this case the player should have thought well, why would Bruno go? No, and then he thinks, well, the girl is cute. Yeah, you know what? Bruno might go after all. Maybe he's not sure about it, but he'll go, Whereas, let's say there wasn't a cute girl, let's say it was just a friend. Well, would he go see a movie just because a friend asked? Then it's up to you to decide, would this character... Yeah, or maybe, okay, for example, let's say someone told me, hey, here's a Harry Potter movie ticket at half price. Then the player might go, well, would Bruno see it at half price? Then the player would go, no, because he never watched them even when they were free, even when friends could have lent him the DVD, so that wouldn't interest him. And then it's fine, then you can say, well, my character Bruno doesn't go watch Harry Potter. But in this case it was, well, the girl was cute, would Bruno go watch that movie with a cute girl? Yeah, then Bruno's going. So that that example is perfect. I think, yeah. Some players do travel through real-world games, and maybe you might be one of them. And just ask yourself that question, are there times where you could have found a reason? And don't forget, sometimes in real life also, haven't you ever had one of those occasions when you're thinking about something you did, and you go, wow, that was really out of character for me? Because it happens for everyone has a day where they might be grumpier than usual, or in a better mood, or, more tired, more energetic. We all have times in our lives when we went, well, I kind of did something that was out of character for me. For example, if you talk to someone in a rude way, and you're usually very polite, but maybe that day you had a headache, and everything was going bad for you, and then you're like, wow, that was really mean, that wasn't me, well, what came over me that day, So there's also that to take into account, or when you're playing a character, he might have a day where he might do something out of character because you decide why. You decide why. Or maybe also our personalities, and this is something I haven't seen many people do in role playing games. This is something that sometimes our personalities change a little bit depending who we are with. When you're with certain types of friends, you kind of make more jokes. When you're with other friends, you're calmer, or you do different activities. And I think in role playing games, it's like maybe you have maybe your adventuring friends or allies are the ones who bring out certain aspects of you, or do you do things that otherwise maybe your character wouldn't. Think of any buddy cop movie you've ever seen, like the Lethal Weapon movies with Glover and Gibson, where the older cop does a lot of crazy things just because he's with his crazy partner that he usually wouldn't do by himself. So there's all these things to consider. So yeah, in the end, it's kind of like a gray area because player freedom is important, but at some point, some players are just being difficult, and that's all. So yeah. Anyway, hope you liked the episode, and I hope you liked the kitty. He's really annoying. Yes, you are. And I'm gonna close with him. I'm gonna move into the camera. Say bye, kitty. Stop biting me. Bye.